Welcome one, welcome all to this new track guide series for the Ferrari GT3 Challenge series. First race is at Jerez, which is a new track on iRacing, so a lot to learn. Let's get into it. Right, so first of all, what we're going to do is we're going to run through the fast lap. Okay, this is a 1:42 dead. Now, the really quick guys will be going kind of 7-8 tenths quicker than that, but you know, that's not kind of what we're after here. Now, I'm a just under 4K rated driver. So, and I finished 12th in Division 1 last year. So, I'm a good driver, but I'm not alien-esque, okay? And that's probably a good thing because they do things that we just can't, okay? So, this is a lap that hopefully you will be able to replicate, okay? So, we'll go through that first, then we'll break down each corner afterwards. So, don't worry too much about this. It's just to get a feel of the lap at full speed, but we'll go into it afterwards. Okay, here we go. So down into turn 1. Looking to catch second gear quite late. You need to open it up and run it as wide as you can. This is just a normal second gear corner really for turn 2. I get quite tight. You want to open up this one because it's, although it's flat, it's barely flat. Here we've got to lift a little bit, I would say. You know, ideal condition, you could take it flat, but we've got to remember we've got 48 degree track temperatures, which is just, it's very high. Also, I think they may have changed the preload slightly on this car for the challenge set, and the rear just wants to come around a little bit more now. So, something to look at there. Braking just before the 100. ABS kicks in a little bit, but as long as we're keeping it tight, it's fine. Very tricky section this now. Very tricky. This is just flat, but I would lift probably. Very difficult corner this one. The rear wants to come around the whole time. Very tricky. And this is a really tricky corner on the brakes. If you brake too hard, you're going to mess it up. I messed up a little bit here. I had to change out into second. We'll go through that in more detail. Again, we've got some very tricky corners here. Got to get it in, nick as much as you can. And then from here, in theory, it's flat. It's probably going to be a lift for a lot of people, I'll be honest. And then finish it off with a nice simple corner, luckily. Though it is a bit tighter than you think. You've got to be super patient on it. But there we go. That's the lap. 1:42 dead. Achievable for you guys, you know. That's not impossible. So let's run through it. Right, so it's time now to break things down a little bit. So coming up to turn 1, it looks tight, but it's actually not as tight as you think, okay? It's you just about change into second, but really, in theory, you might even better take it into third. But this is where you have to open up the corner. Okay, so as we approach it, you have to get across onto this blue area. Now, so many amateurs will just put their wheels onto the curbs. Now, don't forget, I'm an amateur, but, you know, a fairly quick amateur, okay? You've got to open up this corner as much as possible. Okay, don't just think, well, this is where I should be. I don't want to nick too much. It'll unsettle the car. It will make a lot of difference. Okay, we're talking tenths of a second here. It's just, you have to open up this corner. So we're literally right out on here. You want to be running your left sides across. If we have a look at the chase camera, we see we're basically straddling this curb. Now, you can probably go even further over, but I like to straddle it because as soon as the wheels are onto that rumble strip, so if you've got your right side wheels on that rumble strip, you might start to kick in a bit of ABS. Okay, so that is where I like to be. Okay, so back to cockpit. As we're coming in, it's quite a late change down into second. Okay, so I think, yeah, I'm still in third here. Okay, and then we're second here. Okay, and we're trailing in just a little bit of brake, but we want to be picking up the throttle quite early because we can actually, there is quite a lot of runoff here, okay? So as we come in, there, can you see? Before we've even touched the apex, what we see a lot of people doing is braking all the way up to the apex, and then as soon as it gets to the apex, then they accelerate. Now, this track in particular, there's a lot of corners where you can accelerate before the apex, and this is one of them, okay? So you want to be accelerating before the apex, and this is, so the way with the track temperatures as they are, and with the preload being perhaps slightly higher than it used to be in the challenge set, it's now at 100. I thought before it was at like 75. I might be wrong on that, but the rear really wants to come around here. So there's quite a few corners where, as we're coming out of the corner, you're going to have to go to about 75% and feel what the car's doing. And because if you just go, if I win full throttle here, the rear's coming around. It's, you know, it's as simple as that. Okay, so if you want to carry the most amount of speed through on exit, you're going to have to manage that throttle. Okay, as we come out wide, use it all. Left, if your left wheels are on here, you're just losing so much time. Yeah, if it's just on the blue and white, you haven't gone fast enough. Okay, and that doesn't mean just driving out wide. You know what I mean? You have to have the car push you there. Okay, and that's how you know you've got the right amount of speed. Okay, it's tricky, and turn one, it kind of looks simple, and you can just take it nice and steady through there, and you think you're doing all right, but you need to push it. It's worth many tenths of a second. Okay, so as we're coming down to here, this is quite a simple one. I use the bridge as a reference, braking just before the bridge. Okay, it's quite a simple corner really. You've got to be careful with the ABS. So now we've got these. I found with this ABS, the lights kind of flash up a little bit more than they used to. Okay, so you'll probably see that kick in if you're braking too hard. A little bit of ABS isn't an issue, okay? But you don't want to be doing it all the time because you'll just overheat the tyres, okay? And ABS is unpredictable with the braking. Sometimes you'll brake well with it, and other times it won't stop you as much. And that's not ideal, let's face it. So we want to kind of make sure we're really tucked in. You know, we really want to be kind of on the green bits, okay? That'll help us get the car tucked around. As we're coming out, we don't want to go too wide because we need to open up the next left-hander, because although it's flat, it's barely flat, and it won't be flat after a few laps, and probably in a race situation it won't be flat because you're not going to be on the optimal line all the time. Okay, so you should see with flat, I might even lift. Do I lift? No, I don't. Okay, but it's on the edge. Okay, this is a corner where again we have to use some of this. There is an off track here which I got a few times in practice, so practice, make sure you know roughly where you are. Left side tyres on the edge. Now this corner in theory is probably flat, but in reality a little lift doesn't kill you. Okay, most of the time it's made up in slow corners. Okay, faster corners you're not going to lose ridiculous amounts of time. Okay, so a little lift, as we see, we're down to about 90%. If you need to lift more, lift more. Okay, it's not a big deal. Coming in, got to try and get onto the blue stuff, yeah, or kind of as close to it as possible. So as we see here, we're just into the blue stuff, yeah. It's kind of important to pull you around. If you don't hit that blue stuff, you're going to run wide on exit, okay. And on exit, again, there is a 1x here. Very easy to dip your wheels, so be careful of that. And also, the rear might want to come around as well, okay. So a lot to look out for. This next right-hander, this is a tricky one. Okay, not gonna lie. Again, straddle it. If only your left tires are on there. Sorry, wrong camera. It's not gonna do it. Okay, we want to be really straddling it. Okay, now as we come into the corner, it is a bit off camber. Okay, and this is another corner where if you just go full throttle, it's coming round. Okay, there's no ifs, buts, maybes. We gotta be patient. So we're bringing on the throttle slowly to about 50%, and then up to about 90%, I suppose. But again, if I was full throttle here, the rear's coming around. Okay, and we'll see on exit here, I'm kind of having to do it a little bit there and here. You see my wheels actually straight. The traction control kicked in. As I've gone full throttle, the traction control's kicked in, and I've had to counter steer it. So that's not even optimal. Okay, I mean it's fine, but it's not optimal. Okay, so you've got to be super careful about that, especially in race situations when the tires might start to get hot. Okay, coming down to the hairpin next. So what we want to be doing here is braking just before the 100. You can't brake at the line. You use it as a reference, but braking at the line is not going to work. Okay, so again, I like to straddle. So from the far chase, we're straddling that curb. Just opens it up that little bit, makes quite a big difference. Okay, we're braking. So definitely before the line, okay? We're braking hard, and here the ABS definitely kicked in. Okay, so if we rewind it, I'll play it without the UI, and you'll see those lights at the bottom are coming on. Okay, that means the ABS kicked in. Okay, not end of the world. Okay, just don't do it routinely, I would say. Okay, this set uses medium pads. Okay, so they will grip a little bit, so try and stay out of it. Apparently with this new ABS model that iRacing have got for this season, it's not as aggressive as the old one, so you'll probably get away with it a bit more. But we just like to be as consistent as possible going into the corner, and we like to have control ourselves rather than the car deciding basically how fast or slow you slow down. So as we're coming into the corner, holding the brakes, again trailing off, and as you get that turn in, as you turn the wheel, that's when you're starting to come off. Okay, the car won't turn and brake at the same time. It's one kind of or the other. So the more lock you put on, the less you brake. So we're coming in, and again, we kind of want to be getting on the power as soon as possible, but this is a corner you need to get the car rotated on. Okay, so we're there, and you can run it out wide, but you can then be quite aggressive on the way back. The one thing I will say about this corner is don't get the rear out. Don't light the rear up on the way out, because there's quite a few rear grip limited corners coming up, where you need that rear grip. Okay, and if you've slid the car here, you're in trouble for the next few. Okay, so the traction control came in a little bit here for me, but not too bad. Okay, again, we need to get right over to open up this corner. I didn't quite catch the apex here. This is a corner I struggled with. Okay, it is flat, but you can see I've even had a little confidence lift there, because I don't like that corner for some reason. I just can't quite get through it flat. Again, if you need to lift, no big deal. It's a fast corner. You're not in it for very long. You don't lose much time. Okay. So again, here, we really want to open it up. Now, you will have to be slightly onto the curb, but we're not braking that hard. So you don't have to worry as much about the ABS. We're looking at about 50% brake. Then as we're coming in, train it off. Now, something I forgot to mention is my brake bias is set at 53.4. So obviously it's a fixed set, but you can adjust the brake bias, and I put it forward 2 clicks. And it's for these next set of corners, because it's very easy just to have a little bit too much brake and the car will come round. And especially in a race situation where you've got car in front, car behind, you might not be optimal in. And if you have to brake a little bit harder than you were expecting, that's not good, is it? The car's coming round. So trailing off. And again, we want to be catching this blue area if we can. Okay, I don't think did I do it? No, maybe not quite. Okay, so it's not end of the world, but at least get onto the curb. Okay, and this is a really tricky corner. Again, you can't go 100% too soon, because the car's going to spin. Okay, and again, I wouldn't run it out too wide, because then you have to bring it all the way back aggressively. Okay, some drivers might get away with it, but this isn't one where you have to run it wide. Okay, it's not like turn 1. So as we're coming back over it, again, we're straddling the curb. Now, I don't nail this corner very well. Okay, I think basically I needed to have braked. You want to do all your braking in a straight line. So as you're coming to the corner, that's where you need to brake. Maybe you could have braked a little bit harder here. Got a bit more speed off, because as we see, as I come into the corner, the car just does not want to turn. Okay, just braking a bit too hard at this point, I think, and the car just plows straight. Now, you're never going to nail every corner perfectly, especially, where we are, 3K below. You're going to make mistakes into corners. The idea is just to not compound that mistake, okay? So we don't just say, well, I'm just going to do exactly the same thing as I normally do, even though I've made a mistake. So here, I would normally take this in third, but because I've realised I've had to slow the car a little bit more to make the corner, because I've had that understeer moment, I've had to change down into second gear. If you have to change into second, then do it. But I would like to carry third through here if we can. Then the car run out wide. And again, you want to be as wide as possible here. Okay, you've got to open up the next corner. So we're coming into the corner, a little bit of trail braking. I didn't quite get the trail braking done, and that's going to push me a bit wide. But again, looks like a tight corner, but it's not actually as tight as you think, because you've got all this runoff to use, and there is a 1x here, but as long as your right hand wheels are on this curb, you're fine. Okay, and this is a really tricky section. It's very tricky, and it will just take laps. You know, sometimes you just have to put in the laps. Now, one of the tricky bits is that there's no real brake marker. So what I do is, and this will depend on your field of view, this could be different for you, but it's just an example of how to pick a braking point when there's nothing obvious. I use this strut down the windscreen. So you see, we've got the what is that? It's a windscreen reinforcement bar, maybe something along those lines. Anyway, but as that reaches the apex of the corner, that is when I then start to brake. So as we see, as it crosses, that's when I brake. So for this complex, you've got to make sure you sacrifice perhaps a little bit of the first corner to open up the next few, okay? So we're braking, in we go, and we can take a lot of this curb, okay? So as we see, we're actually on the grass, okay? It doesn't feel like you're on the grass when you're driving it, but yeah, we can get right there, and you can even go a little bit more, okay? I wouldn't advise that, but you can, and you don't even get a 1x, but you do get a slowdown if you take too much, okay? So we're into this corner, and from here, we don't even really need to brake, we're just balancing throttle, okay? So we get a bit of throttle on. I've maybe got a bit too much on there. Maybe we could have lifted a bit more, because we then want to take as much of this one as we can. Actually, that was perfect. Yeah. So we can take a lot of that curb. Again, I think it's right-hand wheels perhaps on the blue and white. But that's where you want to be, okay? Sacrifice the first one. Yeah, so as we're coming in, we're not running too far over to the left. We're balancing our throttle, we're lifting off to get the nose of the car in, and then we're on the throttle again, up and over the curb, okay? And then from this point here, if you can, again, don't run the car out too wide on the right-hand side. You've got to sacrifice even that corner a little bit to get it over to the left, because from here on in, it's flat. Now, don't get me wrong, I did a lot of laps in practice, and it took a long time to get this flat, okay? And if you're not at least this point across on the left-hand side, it's not going to be flat, okay? So what we want to be doing is try and, in practice, I would lift most of the time and then just gradually build it up. In a race situation, you're most certainly going to be lifting, okay? In qualifying, might be worth a go. If you're like a 10th behind your best lap and get to this point, go for it. But again, lots of practice required. Okay, we don't want to take too much of this curb. If we take too much of this curb, it's going to push us out wide and ruin the lap, okay? We're just not going to be able to get on full throttle. So again, we're flat around. And even here, the car, this corner, in theory, easy flat, but several times in practice, the rear would come around, okay? So don't worry if you think like, oh, it looks easy flat, why can't I do it easy? It takes a bit of time to build up, okay? And then we've got a nice simple corner to end with. So we've got two lines here. We've got the 100 line and then kind of the safety car line, I suppose that is. And we can brake after the safety car line, okay? So we go over the safety car line and then we can start our braking, okay? So we brake, and then there's a little, where the tarmac here is, that's kind of like a bit of a good turning point, I suppose. It's quite a long radius corner. So there's several ways to do it. It's probably not optimal. I think I got back on the power a bit too early. So this is too much power at this point, okay? So really, I probably need to be fast in, holding the brake in a bit more, and then getting the car rotated before then accelerating. But, you know, look, it's fine. You know, at the end of the day, I did a 42 dead, okay? So as we're coming out, getting on the power, again, run it as wide as you can. You know, I can probably even go wider than this. Again, left-hand side wheels on the blue and white, and you're fine. And then it's just all the way to the end. Don't get lazy with your shifts. Make sure you're all the way up there before you change. And that right there was 142.095. So I believe that is something that, you know, anyone should be able to achieve, really. You know, I say I'm a 3.8k rated driver. If you're under 3k, hopefully this was useful to you. Okay, hopefully you picked up a few tips and tricks, and we'll be doing more videos obviously in the future. If there's anything you'd like to see, let me know. And yeah, good luck out there. It's going to be tricky. I think there would be lots of DNFs with people spinning off. So keep on track, build up your speed throughout the week, and good luck.